She found a lost child crying in the rain, never expecting the girl's father to be the man who once shattered her heart. But when he stares into her eyes and says, "You?" everything Maya buried begins to rise. And the secret she swore to protect is now standing between her and the truth he never knew. Before we dive into this unforgettable journey, tell us in the comments, where are you watching from? If stories about love, sacrifice, and second chances speak to your heart, hit that subscribe button, because tomorrow we're bringing you another powerful story you won't want to miss. The rain fell in thin, steady sheets, turning the alley behind Luna's diner into a slick maze of puddles and forgotten trash. Maya had just clocked out after a double shift, exhaustion dragging at her limbs as she tucked her apron into her backpack. She could already hear the city's chaos fading into a distant hum when something stopped her mid-step. A sound, soft and broken, barely audible over the storm. A whimper. She turned toward the dumpsters. Beneath the rusted edge of a cardboard box, something moved. Maya's heart kicked in her chest. She crouched down carefully and lifted the flap of wet cardboard. Inside sat a little girl, no older than 6, her school uniform soaked, her small knees tucked beneath her chin. Wide eyes blinked up at Maya, glassy with fear. Her chest hitched as she tried to breathe through quiet sobs. "Hey," Maya whispered, instantly shedding her jacket and wrapping it around the girl's trembling frame. "You're okay now, I've got you." The girl didn't speak at first, just leaned into the warmth like it was the first kind touch she'd known in hours. Maya swept wet strands of hair away from the girl's face and gently asked, "What's your name?" The child hesitated, then whispered, "Emma." "Emma," Maya repeated, nodding softly. "That's a beautiful name. Are you hurt?" Emma shook her head no, but held tighter to Maya's coat. Maya scanned the uniform. It wasn't one she recognized. Navy blazer, gold piping, and an embroidered crest over the chest. Rosewood Academy. Private. Expensive. There was a tag sewn discreetly onto her backpack strap, and Maya's breath caught as she read it aloud. Emergency contact, Gabriel Vaughn. The name hit her like thunder. Not because he was the billionaire founder of Vaughn Tech, or because his face had once graced magazine covers and investor columns, but because 5 years ago, Gabriel Vaughn had been hers. Her past, her heartbreak, her impossible once-in-a-lifetime, and now his daughter was curled up in her arms. Maya didn't have time to process the flood of memories. She needed to act for Emma. She pulled out her phone and dialed the number beneath his name. It rang twice before a clipped, professional voice answered. "Is Vaughn?" She hesitated. "Gabriel, it's Maya." There was silence. Then, sharply, "Maya?" "We found a little girl behind the alley of Luna's diner. Her name is Emma. Her backpack had your number." A pause, then urgency. "I'm on my way." "Quick." Maya stayed with Emma, crouched against the wall as the child nestled into her like a fragile bird. The rain didn't let up, but Maya barely felt it. All she could focus on was the way fate had twisted back into her life without warning. Within 15 minutes, a sleek black SUV pulled up to the curb, headlights slicing through the gray drizzle. The door swung open, and a tall man stepped out. Tailored charcoal coat, rain-darkened shoes, a presence that swallowed space. Gabriel Vaughn. He hadn't changed much, still lean and composed, his sharp jaw clenched tight, but his eyes were older now, harder, haunted. He scanned the alley until he saw them. His steps slowed as he approached, gaze locked on the woman kneeling beside his daughter. Then he froze. His expression fractured into disbelief as he looked at Maya like he was seeing a ghost in the rain. "Hope," he breathed. Maya stood slowly, Emma still clinging to her hand. She could feel the ache return to her chest, that same hollow place he'd left 5 years ago. She nodded once and said nothing. Gabriel took another step forward, his eyes flickering from Maya to the small girl huddled beside her. His voice, usually precise and commanding, cracked slightly. "Emma!" At the sound of his voice, Emma let go of Maya's hand and ran into his arms. Gabriel dropped to one knee, catching her tightly. His arms wrapped around her protectively, holding her like he was terrified she might vanish. He whispered something only she could hear, and Emma nodded against his chest, her tiny fingers clutching his coat lapel. Maya stood still, her clothes soaked, her heart pounding with too many emotions at once. Relief, confusion, fear, and the unresolved ache of everything she and Gabriel had never said. When he stood, Emma still in his arms, his gaze snapped back to Maya. "Where did you find her?" She swallowed. "Behind the dumpsters, crying, alone." He scanned the alley with a look of dread. "Was anyone else around?" Just her." He nodded slowly, processing. Then, softer, "Thank you." Maya shook her head. "You don't need to thank me. I just did what anyone would have done." He said, voice low. "Not anyone would have done it like you did." There was a beat of silence between them, the kind thick with words left unsaid. The rain had slowed to a mist, and the city around them faded to background noise. Gabriel looked at Emma, brushing her damp hair back from her forehead. "She never leaves the driver. I don't understand how she got away, how this happened." Maya asked gently, "Has she said anything?" He shook his head. "Not yet, but I'll find out." Maya looked down at her muddy sneakers, suddenly aware of how out of place she felt in his world. She had no business seeing him again, especially like this. She was just a waitress now, scraping by paycheck to paycheck, and he had become an empire. She turned slightly. "I should go." She paused, her back still to him. "You disappeared," he said quietly. 5 years ago, no note, no goodbye." Her shoulders stiffened. "And you didn't come looking?" He flinched like she'd slapped him. For a moment, the only sound between them was the distant honk of traffic. "I had my reasons," she added, softer now, "and maybe one day I'll explain them. But tonight's not about us." She turned to go. Gabriel didn't follow, but his voice carried after her. "Will you be at the diner tomorrow?" Maya hesitated, then nodded once. He held Emma a little closer, watching her until she disappeared around the corner, into the flickering amber of the streetlights. Inside the car, Emma rested her head against his shoulder and finally whispered, "She was nice, Daddy. She made the scary part go away." Gabriel looked out the window toward the shadows where Maya had vanished. "She always did." He exhaled, not realizing he'd been holding his breath since she said his name on the phone. 5 years ago, Maya had vanished from his life without warning. Now she had returned, by saving his daughter in a rain-soaked alley. But fate never played fair, and this time it had brought more than memory. It had brought mystery, because Emma hadn't just wandered away. She had run. And when Gabriel checked her coat pocket that night, he found a torn corner of paper with one word scrawled in shaky handwriting. A warning, and beneath it, a symbol, a V circled in red. His grip on Emma tightened. Whatever this was, it wasn't over. Not even close. 5 years earlier. The halls of Vaughn Tech were glass and steel, cold, clinical, efficient. But inside Gabriel Vaughn's private office, warmth lived in quiet glances and stolen smiles. Maya stood beside his desk, a tablet in hand, pretending to go over his schedule. In truth, her heart was racing. Gabriel leaned back in his chair, eyes locked on hers. "You're avoiding me." "I'm working," she said, not looking up. "Maya." His voice dropped lower. "You kissed me. Then you disappeared for 3 days." She finally met his gaze, the flush in her cheeks unmistakable. "Because I wasn't sure if it was a mistake." It wasn't. He stood, crossed the room, and stopped just short of touching her. "But this, us, it can't be public. You know what the board would do?" She nodded. "I don't want your career on my conscience." "Then just give me your time, just us. No titles, no power plays." And for a while, that's exactly what they had. Long weekends hidden in his lakeside home, evenings filled with whispered laughter and shared dreams. She loved him in silence, and he loved her in a world that never allowed pause. But the silence became a burden the moment Maya saw 2 lines on a pregnancy test. Joy collided with dread. She rehearsed the words every day. Gabriel, I'm pregnant. But before she ever got the chance, it happened. She was called into HR, told there was a conflict of interest due to unethical proximity to the CEO. No hearing, no warning, just a signed NDA and a settlement check she never touched. She left the building in tears, alone. And she never looked back. Present day. The Vaughn estate sat like a fortress of glass and stone on the edge of the cliffs. As the car wound up the drive, Maya sat rigid, her hands clenched in her lap. Beside her, Emma, Maya reminded herself, was fast asleep, her tiny hand still clutching Maya's sleeve. Gabriel opened the door and ushered them inside. We'll talk in the library. The space was vast, books lining every wall. But it wasn't the grandeur that made Maya hesitate, it was the familiarity. She had cataloged this room once, organizing his rare first editions with author and date. She remembered the way his eyes lit up when she'd placed his favorite Hemingway on the side table without being asked. Now, those memories felt like ghosts. Gabriel sat across from her. Start talking. Maya glanced down at the little girl curled beside her on the couch. Her dark hair, Gabriel's jawline, those unmistakable eyes. He noticed too. Bong, he asked quietly. Maya's throat tightened. She just turned 4. Gabriel stared at her, stunned. And you were going to keep her hidden forever? I was fired, Gabriel. I thought you were behind it. His expression twisted. What? I had no idea. Maya, I never would have let that happen. By the time I realized you hadn't come for me, I thought maybe you didn't care. Scene. He stood, raking a hand through his hair. She's mine. What is it, she? Maya didn't answer. Instead, Lila stirred beside her and murmured, half asleep. Gabriel froze. His voice trembled. She calls you? Maya nodded. He turned away, grief and fury warring in his face. All these years, I had a daughter, and I didn't know. She was safer without your world, Maya whispered. And honestly, so was I. Gabriel paced the length of the library like a man trapped in someone else's life. His fingers grazed the spine of a book, then recoiled as if the leather burned. Maya sat silently, Lila's head resting on her lap, the quiet weight of years pressing down on her chest. You had no rope, Gabriel said finally, voice sharp but trembling. No right to make that decision alone. She looked up. And what would you have done, Gabriel? Publicized it? Taken her into a world of reporters and corporate vultures? Your name isn't protection, it's a target. She's my daughter, he snapped. To my whole world, Maya whispered. The fire in his eyes softened, just a little. Then why didn't you at least tell me? Tried, she said. I wrote letters. I came to your office once, but your new assistant told me I was banned from the building. I thought, you erased me. Gabriel sat slowly, his shoulders collapsing under the weight of those years. You disappeared, Maya. One day you were mine, and the next you were a ghost. I didn't choose to vanish, she said quietly. I was erased. A beat passed. Tila stirred again. Mama, where are we? Gabriel looked at her, then back at Maya. We're somewhere safe, sweetheart, Maya murmured, brushing hair from her daughter's forehead. Go back to sleep. Gabriel sat back, eyes still locked on the child. What's her real name? Lila, Maya said, but she goes by Emma to keep her safe. He nodded. Smart. Maya exhaled, bracing for the storm she knew would come. You want custody, don't you? I don't know what I want, Gabriel replied honestly. I'm still trying to wrap my head around the fact that I'm a father. I'm not here for a fight, Gabriel. I'm not asking for anything. I only called that number because she needed someone. He looked at her then, truly looked at her, tracing the lines of pain time had etched along her expression. She was still the woman he remembered, and someone entirely different. You still live in the city? She hesitated. A small apartment above a diner. I waitress to keep hours flexible for her school. Gabriel blinked, stunned. You went from my right hand to waiting tables? I went from pregnant and alone to raising a child who needed stability, she said flatly. Titles didn't matter anymore. He turned toward the fireplace, where flames danced in hushed rhythm. Briefly. You want to be part of her life, he said, voice low. Maya nodded, slowly. Then earn it, gently. She doesn't know you. You can't bulldoze your way in. His jaw tightened. I'm not used to asking permission. She smiled faintly. Then, it's about time you learned. They sat in silence. Finally, Gabriel reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small, photo-creased present-ticket. It was the only picture he had of the two of them, snapped during a company retreat. Maya's head rested on his shoulder. He looked happier than he remembered being. Kept this? He said softly. All this time, even when I thought I'd imagined it. All. Maya stared at the photo, her breath catching in her throat. Then, Lila, still half asleep, reached over, took Gabriel's hand and placed it over hers. In that small gesture, the silence cracked. Maya swallowed her fear. She's always asked about her dad. I just never knew how to answer. Gabriel didn't speak. He didn't need to. Because in that moment, holding hands with the daughter he never knew and the woman he never stopped loving, he understood. The name Maya buried wasn't just hers, it was theirs. And now, nothing would stay buried for long. Maya stood in the grand study, the warmth of the fireplace doing little to ease the chill settling in her bones. Across from her, Gabriel placed a manila folder on the table with practiced detachment. His expression was unreadable, carved in stone, a familiar mask she remembered from late board meetings and press conferences. You see that you love her, Ruth said hesitantly. You'll stay here at the estate. For Leela's sake, she's more comfortable with you, and I need time to process all this. Aya didn't touch the folder. You want me to sign a contract to live with my own daughter? Quite clearly, he gave replied. You kept her a secret. I don't know what to trust anymore. A beat of silence passed. Maya stepped forward, slowly. Then let's make something clear right now. I'm not here for money. I don't want a dime from you. Gabriel's eyes flickered, a shadow of something old and raw stirring beneath the surface. Fine, he said. Then we'll put that in writing. I have one condition, Maya added, her voice firm. No lawyers, no headlines. Lila doesn't need the world knowing she's a Vaughn. Gabriel nodded once, agreed. He slid the contract closer to her, then stepped back, as though even proximity was dangerous. Maya opened the folder and scanned the contents. It was thorough: housing arrangements, non-disclosure clauses, custody implications. There was no warmth in the text. Expectations, boundaries. She signed it anyway, because Lila needed consistency, even if that consistency came wrapped in tension and unspoken wounds. Later that evening, Gabriel stood alone on the balcony, watching as Maya sat with Lila in the reading nook. The child giggled as Maya animated a bedtime story, her little fingers curling in her mother's hair. The sound softened something in him and scared him all at once. He turned away before either of them noticed he was watching. In the days that followed, the mansion settled into a rhythm. Aya made breakfast for Lila each morning, always slipping away before Gabriel came downstairs. She explored the gardens when she could, finding peace in the flowers and hedges. Gabriel kept to his study, emerging only when necessary, keeping his conversations with Maya brief and guarded. But he was always watching. He noticed how Lila ran to Maya when thunder rolled across the sky, how Maya never flinched when the little girl cried, how her presence seemed to ease every storm. And at night, when the halls were still and silent, Gabriel would sit in the armchair across from the grand piano Alina once loved and stare at the darkened keys. He used to imagine Alina there, fingers dancing across ivory, humming lullabies into their future. But that future never came. Instead, Maya had returned, uninvited, unexpected, and carrying truths he never saw coming. And he didn't know whether to hate her for it or hold on. One night, Gabriel poured himself a glass of scotch and retreated to his study. The house was quiet, too quiet. He needed distraction. He opened an old drawer, pulling out the documents Mara, his legal advisor, had once set aside for record-keeping. Bills, contracts, ARC letters. But then, something caught his eye. A yellowed envelope, torn along the edge, tucked between property deeds. He pulled it free. The handwriting made his breath catch. It was hers. Maya's? His hands trembled as he unfolded the letter, the words etched in faded ink. Gabriel, if you're reading this, it means I wasn't brave enough to tell you in person. He read the rest in silence, the world blurring around him. But I need you to know, I didn't leave because I stopped loving you. I left because someone made sure I would never feel safe again. Gabriel sat frozen, the letter trembling in his hands. He reread the line again. Someone made sure I would never feel safe again. His mind raced back to the weeks before Maya's disappearance. How suddenly she'd changed. How she started avoiding eye contact, flinching at sudden noises, cutting conversations short even when their love was growing deeper. He had chalked it up to stress, maybe even guilt, but never once had he suspected someone else had driven her away. He turned the envelope over. No date, no signature, just her handwriting, messy, urgent, unfinished. Who made her leave me, he wondered. Who knew about us and didn't want her around? The door creaked softly. Maya's voice came from behind him. Lila's asleep. He nodded without turning. I was going to knock, she added, stepping inside, but you didn't answer. Just thinking, Gabriel replied, his voice hoarse. About the past? Maya folded her arms, leaning against the doorframe. Funny. That's what I've been trying not to do. Silence stretched between them. Why did you keep her from me? He finally asked, facing her fully now. Why didn't you tell me? She blinked, pain flickering in her eyes. Because I was fired before I could. Because, the day I found out I was pregnant, your assistant escorted me out like I was garbage. Because someone sent me a message that made it clear I was never welcome back. Gabriel stiffened. What message? Maya hesitated. A white envelope. No return address. Inside was a photo of me and a threat scrawled across it. Behind, disappear, or regret it. I didn't tell you then because I thought you might be part of it. He looked stunned. You thought I didn't know what to believe, she snapped, then caught herself, lowering her voice. I didn't know who I could trust. I was alone and scared. So I ran. Gabriel paced to the window, jaw tight, staring out into the darkness. Whoever did that, he muttered, they wanted to erase you, and they almost succeeded. Maya looked at him, her tone softer now. But I came back, not because I wanted revenge, just because Lila deserved to know who she came from. Even if you hated me. I don't hate you, he said, his voice breaking. I hate that someone took 5 years from us. A moment passed. Gabriel stepped closer, close enough to see the wear in her eyes, the strength in her shoulders, the same fire he once fell for, still burning beneath her guarded exterior. He exhaled slowly. The contract, it was my way of keeping control, but I realize now, this isn't about control, it's about protection. She gave a bitter smile. Control is all you've ever known, Gabriel. I don't want to control you. I want to protect both of you. She looked up at him, searching for truth. Then start by trusting me. He hesitated, then nodded. Aya turned to leave, but paused at the doorway. I never meant for you to find that letter. He met her gaze. I'm glad I did. She laughed, the door clicking softly behind her. And in the quiet, Gabriel pulled out the letter once more. This time, not with suspicion, but with a slow, aching hope. Somewhere between what was and what could still be, he began to wonder if forgiveness was possible. And if love, once lost, could truly be found again. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the tall windows of the Vaughn estate, golden and quiet, deceptively peaceful. Maya stood in the kitchen, fingers trembling as she clutched the torn letter Gabriel had locked away and then returned to her. Her eyes searched his as he entered, coffee in hand, sleeves rolled, expression guarded. "I need to ask you something," she said quietly. Gabriel set the cup down, sensing the weight in her tone. "Go ahead." "Letter. You swear you never saw it until last night?" He didn't hesitate. "Maya, I would have never let you walk away if I had. You know that." She bit her lip. But someone had to hide it, someone close, someone who knew where it was. Gabriel nodded slowly. "That means we were both manipulated." For years. They stood in silence, the realization settling between them like dust. "We have security records, old staff lists," he offered. "Let's start there." Later that afternoon, they sat side by side in Gabriel's study, combing through files. Names of former employees scrolled across the screen. Drivers, assistants, housekeepers. Then a name made Maya's breath catch. Said aloud. Gabriel leaned in. "My former executive assistant." "She was the one who escorted me out the day I was fired," Maya whispered. "And she hated me." Gabriel's face darkened. "She left shortly after, claimed she had a better offer." They dug deeper, and there it was. Lena's exit interview flagged with HR for hostility, with a private note from another employee saying she took things too personally when it came to Gabriel's attention being elsewhere. Leaves more happily. "Maybe even intercepted it." Maya nodded. "She made sure it never reached you." Gabriel's jaw clenched. "Because she wanted to erase you." Later that evening, as the weight of the truth lingered, Gabriel stood at the edge of the hallway, watching something he hadn't witnessed in years. Maya was sitting at the edge of Lila's bed, tucking the little girl beneath soft covers. Her voice carried softly, a lullaby sweet and slow, Elipith. Gabriel's heart tightened. His mother's lullaby. "Do you know that song?" he asked gently from the doorway. Maya looked up, startled. "Lila asked me to sing it. She hums it in her sleep." He stepped closer, his voice low. "My mother used to sing that to me when I was a child. I haven't heard it in decades." "I didn't know," Maya said, brushing Lila's hair back. "She started humming it when she was a baby. I just picked up the rest." Gabriel looked at the sleeping child, her face peaceful in the moonlight, and then at Maya, her hand still resting protectively on Lila's back. Something shifted in him. The bitterness, the coldness, it softened. Not everything had been taken. Some things, somehow, had survived. He whispered, "Thank you for keeping her safe all these years." Maya looked up, her eyes glistening. "I never stopped loving her. Or you." Gabriel lingered near the doorway, even after Maya rose to leave the room. She walked past him slowly, brushing his arm ever so slightly. That single touch sparked something electric. Familiar. Painful. Longing. Downstairs, the fire crackled softly in the study. Gabriel poured 2 glasses of wine and handed one to Maya without a word. She accepted it, her eyes distant. "How did we let so many years go by?" he asked. Maya gave a faint smile. "We didn't let them go. They were stolen." He nodded. "And we're going to take them back." They talked long into the evening, about Lila's first steps, her fear of thunder, the way she liked strawberries but not the seeds. Gabriel listened, absorbing every word like scripture. "Who do you think she'll forgive me?" he finally asked. "Already has," Maya whispered. "She never stopped waiting for you." Their fingers brushed briefly as she reached for her glass, and for a moment, the space between them disappeared. But just as the moment deepened, the heavy front doors opened with a loud knock. Footsteps echoed. A voice cut through the air like ice. "You see, I'm just in time." Gabriel stood quickly. "Mother?" Eleanor Vaughn strode into the room like a storm, dressed in silk, her piercing eyes landing first on Maya, then on the wine glasses, then on the framed photo of Lila nearby. Her lips pressed into a thin, disapproving line. I came the moment I heard. Is it true, she asked, that this child, might be yours? Gabriel didn't flinch. She turned sharply to Maya. And you expect us to believe that after 5 years of silence? Maya stood her ground. I didn't come for your money or your name. I came because Lila deserves the truth. Eleanor scoffed. And what truth is that? That you show up now, conveniently, after he's built everything? Gabriel stepped between them. Enough. But Eleanor's voice rose. I want proof. DNA test. Immediately. Maya's voice shook. Fine, do it, but you don't get to speak to me like I'm nothing. Eleanor blinked at the steel in her tone, surprised. Gabriel stepped closer to Maya. You don't need to prove anything, not to her. But Maya straightened her spine. I'm not doing it for her, I'm doing it for Lila. The room fell silent, tension hanging like fog. Eleanor raised her chin. I'll arrange for the test tomorrow. Then she turned and walked out, heels clicking like judgment with every step. Gabriel exhaled, rubbing his temple. Maya's voice broke the silence. I can take whatever your mother throws at me, but I won't let her make Lila feel unwanted. He looked at her, this woman who had raised his daughter alone, in shadows and silence, yet never once wavered. You won't have to, he said softly. Not anymore. She nodded, though the weight of what came next was already pressing down. Outside the estate, thunder rolled in the distance. And the test that would decide everything loomed just beyond dawn. The hospital room was sterile and cold, the kind of space where truth left no room to hide. Gabriel sat stiffly in the chair beside Maya, arms crossed, jaw locked tight. Maya kept her eyes on the wall, refusing to let her hands tremble. The nurse returned with the sealed envelope, her voice soft. The results are in. Gabriel took the envelope with steady hands, but his heart pounded like thunder. He opened it. A single breath. Then his eyes met Maya's. It's positive. I'm Lila's father. Maya exhaled so sharply she had to grip the chair to stay upright. Gabriel looked stunned. Not because he doubted it, but because seeing it in writing made it real. Undeniable. His daughter, his blood, his responsibility. Maya's relief lasted all of 3 seconds before the door flew open. Eleanor Vaughn walked in, armed with a tight smile and sharper words. Then we settle this now. Maya rose instinctively, shielding herself. Settle what? Eleanor's eyes never blinked. Custody. You've lied for years, hidden a child. If you truly care about Lila, you'll give her a life of security, with her rightful family. Gabriel stepped forward, protective. But Eleanor cut him off. You're emotionally compromised. I'll handle the legal team. Maya, if you don't cooperate, I'll make sure immigration takes a good look at your status. The room dropped into ice. Maya's breath hitched. You wouldn't. Or a drafting emotion. Eleanor said smoothly. If you fight me, you'll lose everything, including her. Gabriel looked at Maya then, really looked and saw the storm rising behind her eyes. And you take her from me, Maya whispered. After I raised her alone? Eleanor tilted her head. You had no right to raise her at all. Maya nearly fell back into her chair. The memories flooded in. The hospital room after giving birth. No family, no calls returned. Crying in silence as the nurse placed Lila in her arms. Promising to love her enough for both parents. She looked at Gabriel now, his silence cutting deeper than his mother's threats. Later that night, Maya sat alone in the estate's garden, staring at the moonlight slicing through the hedges. Lila was asleep. Her heart, however, was not. Gabriel finally came outside. She didn't turn. He sat beside her anyway. I should have stopped her sooner. Maya said nothing. It was always been like this. Controlling, ruthless. She threatened to deport me, Maya whispered. To take Lila from me. Gabriel closed his eyes. She doesn't speak for me. He speaks louder, Maya replied. And in court, volume matters. Fix it. You can't. He reached into his coat pocket and handed her a folder. She opened it slowly, pages and pages of legal filings, custody protections, immigration sponsorship, declarations of paternity. "I already filed these," he said, "before the test, just in case." Maya's eyes widened. "Why?" "Because Lila deserves both of us. And you deserved better from me." Her voice broke. "You don't know what they'll do to me in court. Do you? That's why I'll be there. With you." The courtroom buzzed with tension. Orders whispered behind thin notebooks. A photographer snapped Maya's photo as she stepped in, her dress modest, her chin high. She clutched her hands to keep them from shaking. Gabriel stood beside her, not in the defendant's row, but at her side. Eleanor glared from across the room, flanked by two attorneys. The judge entered. "Maya Reyes is here to assert joint custody rights over minor child Lila Vaughn. Mr. Gabriel Vaughn is present as legal father. Objection from Eleanor Vaughn, grandmother, seeking sole custody. Is that correct?" All parties nodded. Maya's lawyer, nervous but sharp, rose. "Your Honor, Ms. Reyes raised this child since birth. She never pursued support, she never demanded rights. She simply gave love." Eleanor's voice was icy, and deception. Gabriel's voice cut across. "My mother was never involved in my daughter's life until 2 days ago. Maya did this alone. She deserves custody, not condemnation." Cusps. The judge raised an eyebrow. "Mr. Vaughn, are you testifying on Ms. Reyes's behalf?" Gabriel said without hesitation. Eleanor's attorney objected. "Conflict of interest, emotional entanglement." The judge interrupted. "Here's the father. That entitles him to speak." Maya blinked back tears. When court adjourned temporarily, the hallway erupted in flashes and cameras. Headlines spread like wildfire by evening. Dio's secret child, former waitress, claims custody. He will knock. Heir's mother denies. Scandal demands deportation. Heartbreak and hidden letters. Gabriel Vaughn in court battle. Maya stayed locked in her room, her phone silenced, her heart fragile. But Gabriel knocked. When she opened the door, he didn't speak, just handed her his phone. A video was playing. Shaky, grainy. It showed the front of a hospital 5 years ago. Rain, ambulance lights flickering. The camera turned, her camera focused on a child whose muzzle flaps were burned in the dark sky above. She crouched against the wall, trying to shield her baby from the wind. Her voice off-screen called out, "She shouldn't be alone like this." Another voice familiar. A woman. Lena Harrow. Maya's head snapped up. Gabriel's eyes burned. Someone just leaked this anonymously. "It's proof," Maya whispered. "Proof I didn't abandon Lila. That I was abandoned." Gabriel nodded, and that someone close knew. Maya pressed a hand to her chest. "It was Lena. She followed me, watched me, probably knew where I lived." Gabriel clenched his fists. "And now she's leaking this to destroy you again." Maya shook her head. "No. She didn't destroy me then, and she won't now." The tears that streamed down her cheeks weren't weakness. They were war paint. The fight wasn't over. But she wouldn't be fighting alone anymore. The rain hadn't stopped for hours. It poured against the towering glass walls of Gabriel's penthouse, as if the sky itself was mourning all that had been lost. Inside, Maya sat curled on the edge of the guest room bed, her fingers trembling as she clutched the hospital folder Gabriel had placed in her lap. It was real, all of it. The discharge form, the birth certificate, even the handwritten note she had left at the hospital's front desk, pleading someone to contact Gabriel Vaughn. All dated, all stamped, all ignored. Gabriel stood across the room, silent, watching the heartbreak ripple through her body like thunder. His jaw was tight, fists clenched. It wasn't just guilt burning behind his eyes, it was fury. "I didn't know," he said, voice hoarse. "Maya, I swear to you, I didn't know. I thought you left without a word." Maya looked up, her eyes bloodshot but fierce. "I tried. I begged them to call you. I wrote that letter, I waited, and no one came. Gabriel crossed the room in 2 strides and knelt before her. "Someone made sure I didn't find out," he said, "and I'm going to find out who." He stood, grabbing his phone, and within moments, his voice turned cold as he spoke to security. "Pull all employment records from 5 years ago, starting with hospital liaisons and my assistant at the time. Anyone who had access to incoming mail or communication." He ended the call and turned to Maya again. "This wasn't a coincidence. My mother was involved. I need to know how deep it goes." Maya shook her head, her strength faltering. "Gabriel, your mother, she threatened to have me deported. She wanted full custody of Lila." The color drained from his face. "She what?" "She said she'd ruin me," Maya whispered. And I believed her. Something in Gabriel cracked open. The composed tech mogul disappeared, and the man who once fell in love with a bright-eyed assistant came rushing to the surface. "You shouldn't have had to fight this alone." Choice, however, it was me or her, and I chose Lila. Gabriel lowered himself beside her, the air thick with memories and what-ifs. "I'll fix this." The next morning, Gabriel stormed into his mother's private salon. Millionaire Vaughn, still elegant in her tailored silk robe, barely looked up from her tea. "Previously too," Gabriel demanded. She set the cup down slowly. "I did what I had to do. That girl was a scandal waiting to happen." Gabriel's voice trembled. "You stole years from me. You stole my daughter's mother from her." Eleanor didn't flinch. "You were too emotional back then. Falling for someone like her, she would have destroyed your career." "She's the only one who ever saw me, Mother. Not my company, not my money, me." Eleanor's eyes narrowed, but Gabriel stepped closer. "I found the files. I found the letter. I found everything you buried." His voice was steel. "And I want every staff member you paid off, fired, today." Eleanor's lip curled, but she said nothing as he turned and walked out, slamming the door behind him. By the time Gabriel returned to the penthouse, Maya was gone from the guest room. Panic rose in his throat until he spotted her in the kitchen, trying to make Lila breakfast. Her hands trembled as she cracked eggs into a pan, her body swaying slightly, as if even standing upright was now an act of will. He stepped closer. "You should be resting." Maya didn't turn around. "I couldn't sleep. I didn't want her to wake up to silence again." He reached out and gently touched her elbow. The moment he did, her body sagged. She collapsed into his chest, unconscious. Gabriel caught her before she hit the ground, his voice breaking. "Maya?" Lila, still in her pajamas, came running, her tiny feet slapping against the marble. "Mama?" He held Maya in his arms, calling for the driver, the doctor, anyone. Rain lashed against the windows as they rushed her into the car. In the back seat, Gabriel cradled her, brushing damp strands of hair from her forehead. "For all of it." The doctor later confirmed, exhaustion, emotional strain, and suppressed stress. She needed rest, fluids, and calm. Gabriel sat at her bedside that night, watching the slow rhythm of her breathing. For once, the empire outside his doors didn't matter. His company could wait. The headlines could scream. None of it would ever compare to the weight of nearly losing her again. When Maya stirred, her first word was, "Lila." Gabriel smiled. "She's fine. She's napping. She made you something." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a crumpled drawing. Stick figures, sword half open, holding hands under a bright sun. He said this is her family, and she asked if she could call you something today. Maya blinked, dazed. "What?" The door creaked open. Lila stood there, barefoot, her favorite stuffed rabbit tucked under one arm. "Mama," she whispered. The word floated like light in the room, landing softly but powerfully in Maya's chest. Tears slipped down her cheeks. "Hi, baby." Lila climbed into the bed and curled into her side, completely at peace. Gabriel watched them, his past, his present, his redemption, folded into one small moment. His heart, long buried under ambition and betrayal, stirred in a way it hadn't in years. Outside, the rain finally stopped. The clouds parted over the city skyline. But the real light was inside that room. Maya pressed a kiss to Lila's forehead. "I'll never leave you again." Gabriel stood, emotion choking his throat. "Neither will I." The press had already started circling, but Gabriel walked out to the balcony that night and made a public statement. Not to defend himself, but to honor her. "Maya didn't deceive me. She protected our daughter, and while others kept us apart, she never gave up. She's not just the mother of my child, she is the strength we never deserved but were blessed to find again." The backlash was swift, but not against Maya. The headlines changed. CEO Gabriel Vaughn defends former assistant and mother of his child. The secret love story that shocked the city. Maya's truth, from waitress to the woman who stood alone. Back in the penthouse, Maya tucked Lila into bed once more, humming the lullaby Gabriel's mother used to sing. Only this time, Gabriel hummed along. He sat beside them, his hand finding hers. "We have a second chance," he said softly. "And this time, I'm not letting it slip through my fingers." Gabriel stood at the edge of Maya's hospital bed, the storm from earlier still echoing faintly in the distance. His hands were clasped in front of him, knuckles pale, as if the weight of what he was about to say required every bit of strength to carry. "I'm not doing this because of the court or the press," he said softly. "I'm doing this because I don't want another day to pass where we're apart, Maya." Her eyelids fluttered open. She looked at him, pale and exhausted, but her eyes were alert with the sting of emotions long held back. "Gabriel," she murmured, her voice rasping from hours of silence. He stepped closer, pulling something from his coat pocket. A velvet box. It clicked open with a soft breath. "And there it was, going to wait," he said, voice shaking. "But life didn't wait for us 5 years ago, and I won't lose you again." Inside the box was a simple gold band, etched with the word "believe." Maya sat up slowly, her body aching but her heart racing. "You don't have to—" "I want to—" Gabriel interrupted gently. "Not out of pity, not for Lila, for you." Tears gathered in the corners of her eyes, too heavy to blink away. He sank to one knee beside the bed. "Maya Flores, will you marry me?" The room was quiet for a long heartbeat. And then, she whispered. "Not because I don't love you, but because I need to believe this is real, that it's not just a rescue." Gabriel nodded, his hand still holding hers. "Then I'll wait, but let me show you it is real." The next morning, Maya woke to the sound of Lila giggling in the hallway. Gabriel was making pancakes terribly, judging by the smoky smell. Maya sat on the edge of the bed, still stunned by everything. The proposal, the trial ahead, the little family forming around her, piece by piece. Later that day, they entered the courthouse hand in hand. Maya wore a navy blue dress borrowed from the housekeeper, her hair pinned back simply. Gabriel wore not his usual power suit, but something softer, approachable. The courtroom buzzed with quiet tension. The prosecutor raised concerns about Maya's immigration status and questioned her intentions. She failed to register the birth. She failed to report the father's name. "Is this not a calculated deception?" the attorney snapped. Maya stood silently, her eyes never leaving the judge. Then Gabriel rose. He spoke with calm, unwavering conviction. "She didn't deceive anyone. She protected our daughter. From a world that would have chewed her up for headlines, from a father who, at the time, wasn't ready." The gallery murmured. "She left because she thought it was the only way to give Lila peace, and for that, I will spend the rest of my life earning their trust." The judge leaned forward. "Mr. Vaughn, are you prepared to assume full legal guardianship?" Gabriel looked to Maya. "Yes, with her, together." The judge paused. "And Ms. Flores, do you accept the same responsibility?" Maya's voice shook as she answered, "Yes, with all my heart." A moment later, the gavel fell. This court rules in favor of joint guardianship, with permanent residency granted to Ms. Flores based on extraordinary circumstances and family reunification. Maya let out a shaky breath, tears rolling silently. Gabriel turned to her, leaned close and whispered, "Marry me tomorrow, where we first kissed." Maya didn't answer right away. her breath caught at his whisper, the courtroom still echoing with the judge's final words. "Marry me tomorrow, where we first kissed." She hadn't thought about that moment in years. It was behind the Vaughn building, beneath a broken lamplight and a blooming jacaranda tree. She had been crying over a missed deadline, her hands stained with ink and coffee. Gabriel had found her. Quietly, gently, and without a word, he'd kissed her. The place where everything began. Now, walking out of the courtroom, hand in hand with Gabriel and Lila between them, Maya felt her heart shift. That evening, Maya stood alone at the balcony of the guest room, the golden hour bathing the mansion's gardens in soft amber light. Lila was napping after a long day. The sun was setting on everything she used to be. Gabriel stepped beside her, holding a small black box. Not a ring box this time, but something different. Inside was the necklace she had once left behind when she fled 5 years ago. A tiny, delicate silver charm with the initial M. He had kept it all these years. "I didn't want to believe you disappeared without feeling anything," he said, "but I also didn't trust myself to chase a ghost." Maya took the necklace, her fingers trembling. "I wanted to tell you, I wrote letters, I tried, but someone made sure you never got them." "I know," Gabriel said softly, "but none of that matters now. We have today, tomorrow, the rest of it, if you'll have me." Tears welled up again, but not from pain this time, from release. She whispered, "Yes, I'll marry you tomorrow." The next morning, the air was crisp, touched by dew and something sweeter. Hope. Maya wore a simple white dress borrowed from the housekeeper's daughter. Her hair fell in soft waves. Lila held a basket of flower petals and clutched Gabriel's hand with delight. They returned to that spot behind the old building where the jacaranda tree still stood. A small group gathered. No media, no crowds, just warmth. Gabriel took Maya's hands. "You gave me a second chance. At love, at being a father, at being whole." Maya's voice broke as she answered, "You saw me when the world didn't, and you waited, even when I couldn't find my way back." With a simple vow and soft laughter in the air, they were married beneath the blooming purple blossoms. Lila threw petals with messy joy. "We're a real family now," she squealed. "It was soon," Abraham said, lifting her into his arms. "Forever." As the three of them walked back toward the car, the press waited in the distance, but no one approached. There was something sacred about what had happened, something that even headlines couldn't touch. The final frame closed on Maya turning to look back once at the tree where her story began. She didn't feel invisible anymore. She felt seen, loved, and finally, home. The sky blushed in shades of rose and gold as the waves gently lapped against the cliffs below the old coastal chapel. A breeze carried the scent of wild jasmine and sea salt through the open doors. The small chapel, once weathered and forgotten, now glowed with candles, soft white flowers, and the quiet murmur of morning promises. Maya stood just beyond the chapel entrance, her heart thudding in rhythm with the ocean below. Her dress was not extravagant. It was simple, flowing, soft ivory with delicate lace at the sleeves. Her hair was pinned with sprigs of baby's breath. She wasn't nervous, she was whole. She had never imagined this moment would be hers, not after years of struggle, heartbreak, and silence. But now, here she was. A tiny voice tugged her back to the present. Small-handedly stood beside her in a soft pink dress, her curls bouncing and her face lit up like a lantern. "Are you ready?" Maya bent down and cupped her daughter's face. "Are you ready to walk me down the aisle?" Lila giggled, eyes wide. "I practiced." And then, together, they stepped into the chapel. The guests, small in number but large in heart, rose to their feet. At the end of the aisle, Gabriel stood beneath the archway of soft tulle and candlelight, waiting. His eyes never left Maya. He had seen her in moments of despair, defiance, survival. But this was different. This was peace. This was the woman he had always loved, but now, finally, fully, he could keep her. As Lila walked proudly, her small hand wrapped around Maya's, whispers rippled through the chapel. Not from gossip, but awe. Maya looked up and met Gabriel's gaze, and everything else disappeared. When they reached the front, Lila placed Maya's hand into Gabriel's and turned to the crowd. "My mama's the prettiest bride," she declared, before taking her seat with a proud grin. The officiant smiled but said little. He understood that this was no ordinary union. It was a story rewritten, a family restored. Gabriel took Maya's hands in his. "I thought I lost everything the night you left," he began, his voice steady but full. "But you didn't just return to me. You brought our daughter, you brought truth, and you brought the part of me I thought died when I lost you." Maya's voice trembled as she answered, "You gave me a daughter, but more than that, you gave her a name, a home, and you gave me back the man I fell in love with. The man who once kissed me under a broken lamplight and made me believe I mattered." Gabriel swallowed hard. "You never stopped mattering?" As they exchanged vows, even the waves seemed to hush in reverence. And when the kiss sealed the moment, Lila cheered the loudest. After the ceremony, guests gathered on the grass outside the chapel, overlooking the cliffs. The sun had risen fully now, casting long golden shadows and warming the earth. Gabriel clinked his glass gently and turned to the small crowd. "There's something I want to share," he began. "This marriage isn't just a new beginning for Maya and me. It's a commitment to others like her. Like us." He took Maya's hand. "We're starting a foundation, the Maya Vaughn Foundation, to support single mothers who've been silenced, overlooked, or pushed aside. No woman should have to choose between survival and dignity." Gasps and murmurs of support swept through the crowd. Maya's eyes widened, her lips parting. "Gabriel?" But he only smiled and squeezed her hand. "It's your name, your story, your strength. And now, it will be their legacy too." Her eyes brimmed with tears. Later that afternoon, after the guests had left and the chapel had fallen silent once more, Maya walked barefoot along the cliffside garden behind the chapel. The wind tugged at her veil, and sunlight danced on the ocean below. Lila sat cross-legged nearby, scribbling intently in her journal. Gabriel watched them from a distance, hands in his pockets, a quiet smile on his face. There was something unspeakably powerful about seeing his daughter safe, her laughter ringing like bells in the sea breeze, and seeing Maya, not as a woman hiding behind exhaustion or fear, but as the woman she truly was, radiant, whole, loved. Maya knelt beside Lila. "What are you drawing, sweetheart?" Lila grinned and flipped the notebook around. It was a family portrait, 3 stick figures holding hands. One had long hair and a crown of daisies, one wore a tie and had square glasses, and in the middle, a little girl with a toothy smile. Beneath it, carefully spelled in large crayon letters, were the words, "My family, the Vaughns." Maya's breath caught. "Hear what you want," she whispered. Lila nodded. "That's my name now, right? Like Daddy's, like yours." Maya looked toward Gabriel, who had come closer, crouching beside them. Gabriel brushed a strand of hair from Maya's face. "It's always been her name. She just needed a reason to believe it." It touched her heart. "And now she has one." The final scene took place just as the sun dipped low again, golden against the clouds. In the small chapel garden, a plaque had been placed between a circle of newly planted roses. Gabriel, Maya, and Lila stood together, hands linked. The plaque read, "To those who've been lost and those who find their way home. In honor of every mother's courage and every child's voice. Founded by Maya Vaughn." Gabriel looked down at the plaque and then at Maya. "You once said you were just a waitress." Maya laughed, gently, brushing a tear from her cheek. "I was. And I still am sometimes." "You're also the reason our daughter smiles like that," he said, looking at Lila as she twirled barefoot in the grass. "You gave her roots, and now, a name." Maya leaned into him, resting her head against his shoulder. "We gave it to her together." Just then, Lila skipped over and held up a paper she'd taken from her school folder. "Look," she beamed, "I signed it myself." Across the top, in messy, determined handwriting, it read, "Lila Vaughn." Maya knelt, wrapping her arms around her daughter. Gabriel joined them, holding them both as the wind swirled petals across the garden floor. And as the sky faded into dusk, one truth remained. This was a family reborn, not from bloodlines or power, but from faith, forgiveness, and love.